All right. We're kind of down to the nitty gritty at this point. We've got Ole Miss taking on Miami today in a little showdown action. I do appreciate that both sites offering full week or like the two gamer. I prefer playing that to some extent, or at least having that option. So I hadn't quite looked at FanDuel. I kind of know what I'm going to do on DK, although DK's been dragging their feet. I don't even want to see, did they even put in the showdown for tomorrow? Like they're still dragging tail on that. But no showdown slate for Friday yet, somehow, some way from DK. Don't know why. That's an interesting plot twist. If y'all have been trying to keep up with it, the portal has been an absolute madhouse. Uh, I honestly love what LSU did by getting. I don't like the way that it went about, but I like the fit for DeMond Williams. But that's neither here nor there. We'll have plenty of that kind of content coming up in the near future. So looking at Showdown, let's do Showdown first because I think there's a lot more game theory that goes into the two gamer, given that it's on 2 different days and you have the capability. And the most important part of that is you have the ability to adjust for the second game, right? So you kind of know where you stand after game one. So by the end of the night, you're kind of going to know based on your pieces whether you're behind or ahead. So assessing all of that is going to be extremely important in knowing what kind of swaps are you behind. If you're behind, it's going to be crucial to make adjustments and take some lower owned shots and try to get an advantage on the field. If you're ahead, you can decide to go with a chalkier option and kind of figure it out from there. But tonight is going to be a key piece to this whole thing. I think this game tonight has the potential to be a little bit more shootouty. I still think it's kind of played in that low 50s, like a 27-24 style game. 27 feels like it will be enough as a point mark to win this one. I think Miami's got a defensive advantage for sure. Ole Miss, not particularly great against the tight end, in my opinion. I think Georgia didn't utilize it enough, in my opinion. But showdown wise, we've got key players all over the field. So Chambliss is a guy that you're going to have. I think most people are going to end up captaining Chambliss for the rushing ability, especially around the goal line. He's throwing it extremely well. The targets move around. Y'all already know I'm not a Harrison Wallace guy. Yes, he gave me the blade last week with that 9 for 156 performance. I personally just don't think he's the best wide receiver on the team. I just don't think he's extremely talented. He's extremely hit or miss. So I think Chambliss is a must on Showdown, and I think he's a must on a 2-gamer. Now, I don't particularly want to captain Chambliss in this spot because there is risk from Ruben Bain, the human fire hydrant, just out there dominating an edge. And will they be able to run the football? Kevin Jennings had a good amount of success even on one wheel. So I would expect Ole Miss to be able to throw the football with positive results. By comparison, I know there isn't without risk because of how Julian Sayin performed against them, although he threw the ball decent in that spot. So I think Chambliss is a must on Showdown. I just prefer him at the utility spot because of what else it's going to allow me to get. I think there's 2 ways to build for me that I prefer. I think Miami's got the better advantage on the offensive side of the football, but I don't want Carson Beck because of how expensive he is. And he's going to end up being a facilitator. He's not a runner. You're not getting a rushing touchdown pretty much. You want to buy into that, you can. He's definitely not in play as a captain spot. I think he's a utility, if anything. And realistically, the key decision point on this entire slate is Keywan Lacey. I think the 2-gamer, it all hinges on Lacey, and the Showdown hinges on Lacey. I don't know how to feel about Keywan Lacey. He's not hyper efficient. He's taken complete advantage of good matchups. Just absolutely dominated Florida, dominated Mississippi State. He's done well in the games. He doesn't get a crazy amount of pass volume, but it's there. He's going to get a couple pass catches here and there. Bo Jackson wasn't particularly great against Miami either. Miami's been pretty good against the run, pretty stout there. I think most people end up on Lacey. And I have been heavily involved. I don't know if I want to take a stance fading Lacey. That's the struggle within. So I know that I want Mark Fletcher. I think Mark Fletcher is a better play than Keywan Lacey straight up in this game. That's kind of where I'm leaning. We forget Mark Fletcher 2 years ago was really good. Came off of that foot issue. I think it was a Liz Frank issue last year, and then wasn't hyper productive. Damian Martinez kind of got brought in to take the job, did the job fairly well. Then Fletcher bounced back this year, and I've seen Fletcher is very good. He hasn't had those explosive runs, but the last 2 weeks against A&M, he looked unreal. He just didn't get the touches till late. And against Ohio State, he looked really good against a very stout and a very game run defense. So I think Fletcher is one of the best plays on this slate, personally. He was my initial pick as captain. So in this instance, let's talk about that build first. I think Fletcher at captain is a very strong play. He's one of my favorite captains, probably going to end up being the captain that I end up playing in this lineup that we end up going with in this spot. I do think because it's a more balanced lineup, but we'll show both because I actually have another cheap captain that I have interest in. Outside of that, the force feeding of Malachi Toney kind of puts him in play, specifically on a PPR site like this. He's going to get 3 carries and 5 catches at a minimum. His production's been down the last 2 weeks. Even though he's gotten targets, his just yards per catch is awful right now. But he's the clear focal point of the offense outside of Fletcher. So he's a hard fade as well. Now, if he only scores in that 7 to 13 range, on the 2-gamer, I've debated it, whether I want to fade him or not. We'll look at options on that when we're talking about it. But I think fading him or Lacey is necessary on the 2-gamer. Toney is very clearly the top wide receiver from a projection standpoint. I just don't know. Like, he projects better than Fletcher and Lacey. I don't know that his floor is better than Lacey's, but his ceiling is definitely better in this matchup because he could easily go double-digit catches. I mean, you could see an SMU-style game where he's 9 for 70 and he needs to find the box, but 9 for 70 not necessarily going to cut it in this spot. He did have no, he didn't have a fumble in that game. I thought he had a fumble. So let's throw Malachi Toney in as a necessary evil. Now, another key decision point on this slate is going to come down to Harrison Wallace and Dejon Stribling. Everybody's going to go Wallace for the most part, I would guess. Y'all know where I side. I've been here all year on this train. I prefer Stribling personally. 4 or more catches for most of the end of the portion of the season. He's been extremely productive all the way through the end of the season. Started out a little bit slow. He's on full command. I trust him to be better than Harrison Wallace. Harrison Wallace started the year hot, cooled off, then came back. He's played well at the end of the year as well. I just don't think he's as talented as a Dejon Stribling. Stribling capable of taking 175 to the house. So I'm a Stribling guy personally. I prefer him over Wallace. I completely agree, James. So James talks about you need Shambliss, Stribling, Fletcher, and Tony. I think that is the key. And then Marion and Lee are cheap. 100% agree. I think Caden Lee is interesting. So I'm obviously not going to play CJ Daniels. I'm not a CJ Daniels guy. I prefer Keelan Marion over CJ Daniels. I think he's a better player right now. I'm not a Daniels guy. Yes, Daniels gave me the blade in that Notre Dame game. And he's been kind of a thorn in my side to an extent. Like this is like the battle of thorns in my side. Harrison Wallace and CJ Daniels. I can't stand. I don't think either one is very good. Personally, I just don't see them being difference makers as far as long-term capability. And I think Deshaun Stribling is a difference maker in this game. And I think Keelan Marion has the capability to be a difference maker in this game. I think most of the work goes to Fletcher. Pringle, not going to get as much work. He's just not as involved as he was late in the year when they were trying to keep Fletcher healthy. I wouldn't trust the workload for Shamar Brown from last game either. I'd be out there. I think Daquan Wright is obviously in contention to be a play. I don't prefer him. Deuce Alexander, I think, is extremely talented, but I don't prefer him. They're both viable options. I am going to side with the Keelan Marion side. I do like him. Oh, that's right. I forgot that I built this lineup that way. And then he's my preferred punt option. And then I think Caden Lee is viable, although he's kind of been the Coy Eakin of Ole Miss, where he's been bad spike week, bad spike week. So can he have a 15, 16-point game with a touchdown? Yeah, he could have 7 for 77 and a touchdown probably. I just don't think he's particularly talented. Now, I remembered that I built this one with Harrison Wallace. So that says something. That's me covering my butt. So this is probably going to end up being the team I end up playing, mainly because Harrison Wallace fits. And I don't love Harrison Wallace. I know I just talked a bunch of crap about him, but if he gives me 15 points at 7,200, I'm fine with it in this situation. And he's likely to be in that 10-point range. And he's a last piece in this spot. Because if you go below him, no shot in the world I'm playing Logan Diggs, CJ Daniels, Pringle, Brown. The kickers, this kid, if you wanted to play Carnero, this kid's got an absolute boomstick on him. So I could see that paying off very much so. I think that's a reasonable expectation. Like that would be a fun way to play it if you want. If I was playing 20 max, I would take Wallace out and I'd put Carnero in a spot. But then at that point, I would probably mix around. Maybe I'd go to Davis. Well, I don't think Carter Davis is great, but I think he's in play to get you 7. And then Wright, Alexander, Lee. I'm tempted to say you could go to Lofton. His catch volume's not there, but I do think that every time they've had a good matchup like Pitt, Virginia Tech, NC State, like they're not, those are all pretty bad tight end defenders. Like Ohio State was never a good matchup for Lofton because they're good at defending the tight end. They got speed at linebacker. Ole Miss not good at defending the tight end. I think Lofton's in play as a sneaky touchdown guy. I don't know what his anytime touchdown stuff is, but it would be worth a chance. There, Winston Watkins on the field a bit, but I would prefer not to trust it. Just doesn't get enough action. So yeah, so I'm probably going to end up playing this. If I did not play this, the other way that I feel good about playing, and I have one entry of this, I threw it in a 20 max because I think it's going to be low owned, would be to play Lacey and Fletcher. So this is the other way that I like playing it. I like playing the Keelan Marion side because it gives me my top 5 guys in this game with Shambliss, Lacey, Stribling as your Ole Miss action, and then Fletcher, Tony, Marion on your other side. It's basically a situation where you're swapping Harrison Wallace to Kewan Lacey, and you're swapping Fletcher from captain to Marion captain. That is your swap as far as building out a team. I think Marion ends up being lower owned as a captain. Granted, I think I saw Roto Grinders is probably saying that they liked some guys, some of the free, I like to try to figure some stuff out. So if you go through the free little expert survey thing, Tuttle and Vanek have Fletcher as their top captain choice. Vanek actually has Marion as his second favorite captain choice. So I'm imagining he's on the same mindset as me, whereas they all rest of them have Chambliss, Tony, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's where you're going to end up seeing. And then Justin Van Zuden doesn't like Kewan Lacey, which is interesting. But yeah, I think there's some interesting stuff as far as the Marion captain stuff goes. I did not expect to see anybody saying Marion. But I think Marion's a viable play. He actually operated pretty well against Ohio State. So I think this is extremely viable. I am playing this in 20 max, just as one single entry, because I think it's an interesting way to play it. And then going underweight on the getting off of Lacey in single entry, which I think is a bold move to do. No doubt about it. I think it's a bold move. But it also hedges and gives me some coverage on the I think this is more owned and more popular than the other one, which is why this is in single entry versus 20 max in this spot. All right, let's look at FanDuel because I have no idea what their showdown pricing is. And I'm actually curious what it is. I still can't believe DK does not have doesn't have their pricing up. I like the Marion captain stuff. I think that he can catch one long touchdown, two long touchdowns. I don't think the difference between Marion and Stribling / Wallace is all that different by comparison. I think it's a different way to play it. That's the kind of thing that I would take in a large field, 20 max versus single entry. Like single entry, I want to play a little bit more tight to the vest, but I think you get everything you want with Marion at captain. It might be a little bit too much of a fancy play. I prefer Fletcher. I think Fletcher, I get in trouble a lot of the time by playing those cheaper captains, trying to eat the other points. So that's why I'm thinking about it that way. But anyway. All right. FanDuel, I think it's pretty obvious. You're going to need Mark Fletcher there. I think you're going to want Chambliss over Lacey. I don't know that you want Malachi Tony in a FanDuel setting. That's the tricky part. I mean, maybe you end up there. I feel like Lacey here is almost a must. Let's see. Who else do we have in the building here? 6K on that isn't a bad shout. Elijah Lofton's like a touchdown or bust option. The half-point PPR just throws me on Tony. Like, I'd rather play Beck than Tony in that spot because of it. Can you – that's, what, 13? That would be 1-3. You'd have to find a 1K punt. I don't think you're going to get that. I mean, Tony Johnson's not – he's viable. You could go Tony Johnson if you had to. He'll be out there. He gets snaps, just not a lot of them. I don't think Stribling ends up being popular at captain, specifically on DK. I think most people are going to look at the Harrison Wallace game from last time, and they'd rather play Wallace at captain over Stribling. I don't think he ends up being popular. Like you were talking about, I think people end up going Marion. They end up going Tony. I think Tony, Marion because of the punt, Tony because of going up, Kewan Lacey, Mark Fletcher, and then Chambliss. I don't think you see a ton of Beck, and I don't think you see a ton of Stribling. And I think you maybe get a little bit of Harrison Wallace as well, but not a ton either. I think you could punt potentially. Let's build it out like we would think we want to. See, like I think most people are gonna go. Oh, you can't go Wallace there. Wonder if you do that. I don't like that. I'll be honest. I really don't like this build. I think maybe you go there. Where's Daquan Wright? All right, let's say Daquan Wright because I know he's gonna be on the field. That gives you 9,800. So then you could go like Wallace if you wanted. Then you could go Tony or Beck. Let's just say you went Beck, but that doesn't make any sense because then now you would need to get to Keelan Marion, if I was to say so, because you would need a piece with a Beck. This is interesting because like the Fletcher stuff makes it interesting. I think you can make it work though. Let's say you wanted Elijah Lofton for a little bit of differential over the Daquan Wright stuff that saves you 1,000. Man, this is weird. This is a weird build on FanDuel. I wonder if you just go Shambliss in the FanDuel sense and just go raw points because Fletcher's not helping, actually. Let's see. So because the options are cheaper, let's go there. Let's go. Let's just say Caden Lee or Daquan Wright. It doesn't really matter. Either or is fine. That leaves you 9. So Marion, I mean, you can go Marion, Tony. That gives you kind of like the entirety of the offense. I don't hate that. I don't hate that as a build. I don't hate that. I don't love that, but I don't hate it. It's always weird when they don't have the kicker on here. I think you're choosing between Wright and Lee in that spot because you're not going to get anything else unless you want to go from Marion to Daniels. You can go Marion to Daniels if you really wanted to on here. Yeah, I mean, he had 5 for 49 last time. I think that's going to be a more popular build, something like this with Wright / Lee being in play, no doubt. And then let's see. Well, let's just say you go Lofton. Hang on. What if I go Lofton, Beck? Oh, it's 200 off. I was trying to see if I could get Harrison Wallace in that because I want 3. You're going to want 2 pass catchers with you're definitely going to want 2 pass catchers with Shambliss, or at least 2 pieces with Shambliss. So yeah, I think you're going to end up seeing a lot of that. I think you're going to see some Keywan Lacey stuff. You're still going to need Shambliss if you go Lacey. And then I think you're going to have Fletcher. And I think it's fine to build out that way. Oh, that's an easy build. Yeah, this is pretty solid too. And then you got to pick your poison. I'd be 50-50 on that, but I'd probably prefer Wright. So like Lacey, Shambliss, dribbling Wright with Fletcher and Marion. I think that's good. What's up, Patrick? How are you today? Lots of portal stuff going on, man. It's crazy. All right. I think that's kind of where we're at. I think that's an interesting way to play. All right. This thing, there is so much game theory in the 2-gamer. I will tell you, you need to be fluid. Figure out what you want to play today And then you're going to have to figure out what your options are for tomorrow. The main decision. So this is a lock. Play Shambliss. Don't even think about it. I think, I was going to say I think Fletcher's a lock. I think the decision point comes down to Keywan Lacey. Are you playing Keywan Lacey? Are you not playing Keywan Lacey? I have not figured that out yet. That is a current struggle of mine at the moment. I want to play DeJon Stribling. And I originally wanted to play Malachi Toney. So originally, and my initial thought process is I want this to be the 4 guys from this game today. Shambliss and Stribling, Fletcher and Toney. Legitimately, Lacey is the one that I don't know what to do with at this point. I haven't decided as of yet. I have a couple of ways that I'm building. Jordan Davison, I got that word that he's got a broken clavicle. He's going to be out this week. That bumps De'Aaron Hill up, and I think De'Aaron Hill has – so if you started out the beginning portion of the season, De'Aaron Hill was mixing in. He's a very, very explosive player. But you see, he had 3 catches through the beginning of November total on the season. Over his last 5 weeks, you got a 3, 2, 2, 1, and 3. I think they're throwing the football to him a lot. So I expect his role to increase with Jordan Davison out. Now, Jaden Lamar is going to get on the field a little bit. Like, no doubt about it. He's going to play some. He will be involved. But I think De'Aaron Hill bumps up a rung and gets more of the Davison work and should get double-digit touches. And at 4,300, it's hard for me to want to pass that up given his relative explosiveness. And the last time these two teams played, Davison got a good amount of touches. And if you look at this Penn State game, it was actually very interesting. He led the team in touches. So I wonder what they do with Whittington. I would expect Whittington gets more touches with that injury. Maybe you start seeing more of that like 15 to 20 touch range. They've really limited his touches on the season. I wonder how much people go to Whittington in this spot. If you look at that Indiana game last time, I was trying to look through it. Like, he had 5 carries and 3 catches. De'Aaron Hill only had 3 touches, like 3 carries in that Indiana game last time. And then Davison was the one who dominated the touch count. He had 12. He had 8 carries and 4 catches. So where do those 4 catches go to? I do think they go to De'Aaron Hill. So I like De'Aaron Hill, but then I also like Roman Hemby in this spot. I think they're leaning more to Hemby than Black. Black doesn't really catch the football. The $1 million question becomes, what do you do with Keywan Lacey? It's so frustrating. Like the theory that I have is in building is, do I want Malachi Toney? So currently, as constructed, I want to get the wide receivers. I like De'Aaron Hill in there. And then I want one of the quarterbacks. So typically in this spot, I would go Mendoza. And then that opens up the double stack for me with Omar Cooper. So my initial build was this, right? Double stack Indiana. Pretty even distribution with the top 2 options on Miami. Get the Oregon back that I think is undervalued in this spot. And I get the Indiana double. Now, that does open up swap opportunities, right? So swap-wise, I now have the ability to say, hey, I'm going to swap. I don't think that I want to do the double. I'm going to go from swap. I'm going to swap there. And I can do the Dante Moore stuff. And that gives me the ability to do, I can do Dante Moore. And as my double with Dante Moore, it can be Malik Benson. So I could do Benson, Moore, Surratt, and Whittington, right? So now I have two ways to play this if I want to go to Whittington, or I can go even crazier and just go. I think Mendoza is probably going to end up being the second highest owned quarterback on the slate. So other theory would be, where's Becker? I can go Charlie Becker here if I want. So I can either go Whittington Becker, or I could go Omar Cooper and De'Aaron Hill, right? So Becker's been playing pretty good, but he's more of like a shot play guy. So you're at risk of something. But that's an option as well, right? You can go Mendoza, you can get Whittington. So that's a decision you can now make later. So you're able to set that up to be a later decision point. I was trying to see if I could get to because I can't go Hemby would be 700,000. Yeah, it would be 52. That's frustrating. I was trying to see if I could go Hemby and what's his face? Math's running in my dome right now. Hang on, I think there's a way to do this too. If you go Hemby, hang on, instead of Becker, give me. Yeah, there's a couple different ways to play this. So you could also do it that way if you wanted to. You could, so like there's a lot of different ways you can play it. You could still do Mendoza there. Now you got 5,200. You could do it that way, where you go, all right, I got Mendoza, Hemby, Surratt, and then I got Sadiq on the run back. That's what I'm saying. There's a lot of ways to play that in a different way, for sure. So I prefer to play it that way. The other way that I was looking at is I kind of want to just start with Mendoza as far as that goes. I was trying to figure out how to do that. The only way I could figure that I want to do that, which is extremely uncomfortable to do the Lacey Fletcher stuff, is to go to Omar Cooper, because you're going to need a stack partner. And then you would have to go Omar Cooper and 3,800, which is Keelan Marion. But do I really want to play two Miami wide receivers without Beck is fine. But you run a ton of risk. You'd have to end up with optimally what you would have to run into is literally Malachi Toney throwing a touchdown, which he throws a couple passes a week. So maybe he throws a touchdown to Keelan Marion and this works out. But it's nervy and you're putting a lot of eggs in this basket. And now you have no swaps. Your swaps are nothing. Like you would have Mendoza with Cooper and you're stuck because you basically just stacked this game. I think this is viable in 20 max. I don't think that I'm going to do it in single entry. I think it's too risky. It's too much put on this first game and not enough capability to move around a little bit. The other way to do it is to, let's just say we stick with Lacey. I have debated going off of Malachi Toney. Now, where this gets weird actually is see, I wish this was 40. I'm 100 off. If I could put De'Aaron Hill here, I would, and I would love it. Because then it gives me the Ole Miss double with my Miami run back. The problem is I don't want to run a Mendoza triple, which that's bothersome. That is bothersome. So the only other way to do that is to say, all right, we're not going to play Surratt. We're going to play Becker and Whittington. So this is fine as well. I think this is viable. So Chambliss, Fletcher, Lacey, Stribling, Becker, Cooper, Whittington, Mendoza. I like this. I'm perfectly happy with this option. I prefer having Elijah Surratt personally, but I'm perfectly happy with this option. Then I've toyed with, so we talked about that earlier lineup with the Fletcher thing. The thing that is bothersome in that is I think this ends up being the more popular build. If I was to bet money on it. I think this is the chalk. That's where I would be. Chambliss, Stribling, Lacey, Malachi Tony on the bring back. You don't play Mark Fletcher. So it's the original lineup that I built. It just doesn't have Fletcher. And I think I prefer Fletcher 1-to-1 over Lacey. I think that this is a chalk build, though. This is very chalky. But to get Lacey, you either have to give up Fletcher or give up Tony if you want to build into, or you got to give up a big wide receiver score. You're just going to have to give up a double-digit wide receiver score to do it. You'd have to play like a Caden Lee over a Stribling to get there. I don't think I want to do that. That's where, Lee, that's the struggle. I like the options that this build gives me. It gives me a lot of swap equity because now I can, like I said, I can go to Whittington. I can go to Dante Moore. I can get to the Oregon weapons in here. I can swap up to Hemby. I can go Hemby. I can go Whittington. I can go down to Moore. I could go around to Sadiq. I could go to Malik Benson. I got Decorian Moore. I got all the IU stuff that I can move around in there. So it gives me so much swap equity. And that's my 4 favorite players from this game with Chambliss, Stribling, Fletcher, Tony. That I like this personally. I like having the ability to swap it. Now, if we come out and Lacey has a bet, so the reason why I like having the swaps is for twofold, right? If Lacey comes out and has a big game, let's just say Lacey gets 25, right? And he's 55% owned, 60% owned. And Fletcher comes out and matches him at 50%, whatever. I now have the capability to swap and say, okay, I'd say Mendoza's 50%, which we're going to cover all this tomorrow. I'm going to show y'all exactly where this team is and exactly what we were going to do just to cover ourselves off. So let's say Wallace outscores Stribling. Tony's fine, but he's going to be massive chalk. And Fletcher's, fine. And Lacey was good. And Chambliss was fine. We're going to be able to look at and say, okay, this is the ownership. This is where we're at. If Lacey fails, I can now play the Mendoza double and be sitting pretty, right? I don't have to switch. If Lacey goes sub 15, let's say Lacey's sub 15 somehow, I'm sitting fine. I'm in great shape. But if Lacey comes out and plays 30, it's like, okay, well, now I can't afford to play the likely chalkier Mendoza. I have to swap to Dante Moore. I'm going to have to play a game script that says Roman Hemby scores 2 touchdowns. It's literally the game script from last time. So the last time these two teams played, Mendoza had 14 points. The last time these two teams played, Roman Hemby had 23. So that's your swap. You're saying, in essence, at that point, all right, I'm going to pull back. I'm going to pick one of the two, Surratt or Cooper. I'm going to pick Noah Whittington or what, or let's say I'm going to put Hemby here. I'm going to play Dante Moore. I'm going to play Hemby. That gains me 1,000. I'm still net even. And then I'm just going to swap one of the wide receivers to one pass catching option on the Oregon side. I could swap to Whittington. It's an option. I'd probably prefer a pass catcher. Maybe it's a Sadiq. Maybe it's a Benson. Benson's playing well. I'm not a Blink Benson fan, but maybe it's Benson. So, like, you take one of these guys and then you take lower owned option and you say, all right, cool, I'm going to do that. Maybe you do. Maybe it's not even Hemby. Maybe it is Whittington. Maybe you go Whittington and Sadiq. with a Surratt, or maybe you just say, hey, I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to go Sadiq, and then I'm going to go Whittington, uh, Dante Moore, and Hemby, because we know Whittington's got the pass catching chops to catch 4 balls, right? Maybe he catches a touchdown. Maybe he has a USCS game with 25, right? Or a Rutgers game with 36. That was kind of a frustrating game because he ripped off that 60-yarder right out the gate and didn't really score anything after that. But, you deal with what you got to deal with. So I think this is the smart play. I do think it has plenty of risk, and you're kind of going to know, but at least you're going to know where you're at and be able to play from there. So, all right, let's look at FanDuel. Because I have not built this. So I prefer Fletcher to Lacey straight up. Projections similar, price is way different. So we're going to stick with that. Whittington is an absurd price on here. So I think you have to play Whittington. I didn't even notice that when I first looked at this. Whittington's ridiculously priced. He's too good. It's too big of a spot. Chambliss is a must. I think Moore's got a great price, but Mendoza's probably going to end up being your guy. Let's see here. Do I prefer? Obviously I like Stribling. I might as well just go ahead and add Mendoza. I'll go ahead and add Surratt. Yeah, I mean, you can go Benson here. You can go Becker. There's just a plethora of stuff you got here. I mean, heck, you can even do, shoot, it's easy to do this. You can just do this. You can do Chambliss, Wallace, Stribling, Fletcher, Whittington, Mendoza, Cooper. I mean, there's tons of stuff. The pricing's too easy because you don't even have to go get a Charlie Becker. You don't have to go get like Kenyon Sadiq's ridiculously cheap. Yeah, I mean, you could build anything you want in this. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. What are they even thinking? I think this is probably the best build, personally. Mendoza, Chambliss, Fletcher, Whittington. You get the Chambliss double with Fletcher. You get the Mendoza single with Whittington. I mean, it's kind of hard to beat that. I mean, you got cheap guys everywhere. Look at this. You got Keelan Marion at 57. You got Moore at 55. Lee Wright 54. Lofton's a touchdown threat. Oh, EJ Williams has been scoring. Like, they just priced everybody too low. Yeah, they need to juice their pricing better. I mean, the pricing on Lacey's reasonable, but like Chambliss should be 12.5. Mendoza should be 11. Like, they should have juiced all these guys to north of 10K. And then Fletcher should be in the 9, like 95. Lacey should be 11.2. Hemby should be 886 probably. Whittington should be 8.1. Make you uncomfortable. Like, the fact is, you're getting a freaking all-star team out here, and you're only 300 off of being able to get Surratt to go with Cooper, which I think is viable. You could definitely get there. I mean, you could just go De'Aaron Hill and you're there. So, but yeah, this is kind of what we're looking at. Look forward to watching the game tonight. It's hard not to like Miami in that run game right now. They look so good. I'm going to fade Q1 Lacey tonight, I think. I don't feel very good about it, but I'm going to do it. Yeah. I'm fading Q1 Lacey. Golly, I can't believe I'm going to do that. All right. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, best of luck this evening. Remember, put your Indiana guys in your flex spots. Put your Oregon guys in your flex spots. Give yourself plenty of swap options. We're going to cover swaps tomorrow. Anything that I have viable, I'm probably going to enter a FanDuel team. I'm probably going to enter this exact FanDuel team, to be fair. Although I don't like Harrison Wallace, but I might enter it. I'm going to play around actually a little bit. So let's play around a little bit because I actually am curious. If I go Q1 Lacey, what can I get? Let's get rid of Harrison Wallace. That's 4,800. Can I get there? Don't love that. All right, let's say, well, that'd be 6,800. So, oh, that's just off of Benson. I was hoping I could get Benson. I mean, you could easily just do this. You could go Becker. Yeah. You could go Becker and Whittington. Like, this is viable. Granted, you're full fading Miami. Don't love that. So I wouldn't really go there. I think Whittington's just too good of a price to not do. I just love Surratt so much more. I could do this. Gives me a ton of swap equity. Actually, this makes a lot of sense. So your swap equity, if you said, "Hey, I'm not a Harrison Wallace guy. I don't want to double stack Chambliss," this does give you swap equity because you can do the Hill, you can swap from him to Hill, and you get to Omar Cooper. So you can do this. All right. Well, I think I'm gonna end up with 2 entries then, because I do like the capability to do this, even if I don't want to do this. Obviously, this raw points projection wise. Oh, I can't do Surratt. Never mind. That's why. Raw points projection wise, this is better. We'll say this is better raw, but overall points wise, I think you're gonna want. I think Benson and Wallace is negligible to get you that swap and get there. No problem, James. No, I enjoy it. We are going to have. All right. We just got confirmation. It is fully confirmed. Arrington Maiden, the Memphis backup quarterback, 6'3", 225, has committed to my James Madison Dukes. We now have a power runner that is replacing Alonzo Barnett, who I erroneously picked Wake Forest for. Now Gio Lopez is there, and he's at UCF, which I don't quite agree with. But anyway, good luck to everybody tonight. Just be aware of your swaps. We're going to assess all of our swap options tomorrow. Hopefully, we actually have a showdown slate from DK by tomorrow. But best of luck, everybody. Y'all have a good one.